Welcome to Training. Okay. Then wait for another 1-2 minutes, maybe 1 minute. Good afternoon. My name is Arul, and thank you for joining another of our webinar series. And today's webinar is going to be on public holidays. And I'm sure all of you are excited, with the announcement that was made by the Prime Minister last week, that 15 September 2025 is it's an additional public holiday. So today, what I'll be doing, I'll be covering two aspects in this webinar. One is we'll be speaking on the 15 September public holiday, and we'll be also speaking on the general, provisions of public holiday. So this time around, compared to many other webinars we've done, we'll be covering Sabah and Sarawak as well. There are also some changes to the Sabah and Sarawak holiday provision, so we will cover that. So if you are listening for Sabah, Sarawak, this webinar is also for you. Now, before I begin, just a quick intro of myself. My name is Arul, and I'm sure some of you all do know us. You have been to our academy, you have participated in our training program. But for those of you all, if you do not know us, I'm Arul. I'm attached to Malaysia HR Forum. And once upon a time, I was just like many of you all, working as a HR professional, HR operations in a corporate, etc. But today, I'm a trainer, consultant, and I do training, I do consulting, I provide advisory. I do webinars like this to share my knowledge and to discuss on challenges or questions that you all may have, right? So if you need to reach me, you can reach me at the email address at the bottom. And if you need to contact me, you can also contact me at the number at the bottom. But please don't, be fair when you give me a call or if you want to ask something, right? Once or twice I could, but if it's going to be frequent routine, then I may not be able to help you. And so today's sharing is just a sharing, right? As always, we advise all companies when you are not sure, when you are in doubt, it's always good to refer to the relevant authorities. In this case, will be the Labour Office or the Labour Department. And so it's going to be quite an informative webinar. We're going to cover on the provisions of the public holiday in Employment Act, Sarawak Labour Ordinance, Sabah Labour Ordinance. We're going to look at scenarios. What are the common questions that you may have? And of course, I'll be sharing with you some links, useful links to sample policies, sample memos and whatnot, right? So please listen till the end of the webinar. So we have roughly an hour and a half. So the first part I'm going to cover on the, the provisions, the FAQs, and some scenarios that you may need to know or you may not be sure of. And later part, I'll be covering on the FAQs, the frequently asked questions. Now, for those of you all, if you're listening in today, if you're not yet a member of the HR Forum, so please click and join. But if you're listening to the webinar through the Facebook, you'll be in. But those of you all, if you're listening from TikTok, please also scan the QR code, because many of the links that I'm going to share, the policies, the sample memos, all these are available only in our Facebook community. So you will need to join this group in order for you to be able to download these documents, right? So what is the HR Forum? We are a training organization. We provide consulting, we provide advisory. So if you want to engage us for training purposes, in-house training, public training, we do that. If you want to engage us to provide you consulting services, we do that as well, right? Helping you to write your HR policies, SOPs, helping you on a DI, if you want to run a DI, if you want to do your job grading, job evaluation, salary structure, if you have a union and you want to help on union negotiation, read through your collective agreement, we do all of those. Plus, we also do retainer services, for advisory, right? If you need, then be in touch with us. So the HR Forum, it's a community with over 53,000 members. So I would encourage you to get your HR peers in your company or in the in your network your subordinates in the HR department, even your managers, your leadership team, to join the forum, because we discuss lots of topics and issues and scenarios, what is happening in Malaysia today, etc. With regards to human resources, everything can be found on the Facebook community. It's more like a one-stop center for HR practitioners to know what's the latest, what are the issues, how do I go about this, and so on and so forth. Now, I would like to encourage all of y'all, do not ask any questions first. Some of y'all are, you'll be very quick to ask questions. How about this? How about that? How this, etc. I would encourage all of y'all to listen first, right? Pay attention, listen first to the presentation on the relevant provisions, etc. Most of your questions will be answered already if you listen closely, right? You can ask questions as we progress, but again, I would encourage you to listen first, hold on to your questions. If I've not, if I did not touch on the issues that you have or the questions that you may have, then please type in the text box, and my colleagues will help to show it up, and I will try to answer them, right? But please listen closely, because most of the issues that you have, most of the questions you have would have already been addressed by the presentation, in the presentation itself. So please listen closely, and hold on to your questions, right? Because some of you are like keyboard warriors. You like to type. Hang on first, okay? Be patient. Now, my presentation is going to cover for Peninsula, Sabah, and Sarawak, and this is after the recent amendment. So Sabah, Sarawak, the amendment was done, and it has gone live, enforced 1st of May this year. So these changes covers what is the latest as far as Sabah, Sarawak is concerned, right? This public holiday, 15 September, it's for the entire Malaysia, right? Now, if you look at for Peninsula Malaysia, Employment Act applies to Peninsula Malaysia and Labuan, right? Which falls under Section 60D of Employment Act 1955. For Sarawak, it falls under the Section 104 of Sarawak Labour Ordinance, whereas for Sabah, it's Section 103. Now, if you look at the similarity of all these three, right, there are compulsory holidays. So for Peninsula Malaysia, the total number of holidays that must be given, the minimum for Peninsula Malaysia, meaning all the states in west of Malaysia plus Labuan, right? Labuan falls under federal. So for Peninsula Malaysia, Employment Act applies. Employment Act only applies for Peninsula Malaysia. Sabah has their own Sabah Labour Ordinance. Sarawak has their own Sarawak Labour Ordinance. So for Peninsula Malaysia, it's 11 days. For Sarawak, it's 18 days. And for Sabah, it's 15 days. So Peninsula, we have lesser compared to Sarawak, compared to Sabah. Now, in Peninsula Malaysia, there are 11 public holidays. So what are the 11? You've got the National Day, the King's Birthday, the state ruler. For example, if it's Pahang, the Sultan of Pahang. If it's Perlis, the Raja of Perlis. If it's Penang or Melaka, the YDP, right? The birthday of the state ruler or the YDP. Then you've got Labor Day, which is also called the Workers' Day, or, and the Malaysia Day. So that's 5. But if you look at Sarawak, right? If you look at the middle box, Sarawak has got 6 mandatory holidays, which is the National Day, which is Hari Merdeka, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, the King's birthday, the Sarawak YDP's birthday, Workers' Day, Malaysia Day, and Independence Day. So these 2 has been added in the recent amendment, right? So that makes it 6 for them. Whereas Sabah, there's 5, which is similar to Peninsula. You've got the National Day, the King's birthday, the state YDP, Yang di-Pertuan Negeri for Sabah, Labor Day, and recently added is Malaysia Day. So if you look at the compulsory holidays for Federal Territory, Sabah, Sarawak, it is 5. It is 5 for Peninsula Malaysia, 5 for Peninsula Malaysia, 6 for Sarawak, and 5 for Sabah. Right? These are mandatory. Now, in addition to that, for Peninsula, we have got 11. I'm sure you all know this number 11. This is minimum. So from the 11, you remove this 5 or you minus off this 5, you will need to provide another 6 days, right? Another 6 days. Whereas for Sabah, it is another 12 days, and for Sarawak, it is 15 minus 5 is 10 days, right? So this is it. Now, if you see in all the provisions, right, you see at the bottom, right? If you look at for Peninsula Malaysia, if you see Malaysia Day, you can see the word N, right? So what is compulsory or what must be given? 11 days, includes a National Day, etc. And item B, which is any other day appointed by the minister under Section 8. So this is compulsory. So A and B is compulsory. So sometimes we have this thought, do I need to observe? We already have 11. So don't ask this question. I'll answer it right now. It is 11 plus Section 8, right? So, for example, now the Prime Minister has announced 15 September, so that becomes mandatory. That'll fall under B. So it is not or, it is N, right? That means 11 and Section 8. Same goes to Sarawak. So for Sarawak, there are 18 public holidays, and you can see there and any other holidays, right? So it's 18 plus, right, any other holidays. And same goes to Sabah. Sabah, the same thing as well. 15 and any other holidays, right? So let me say this again. For Peninsula, it is not just 11, it is 11 plus whatever has been declared under Section 8, right? So is it mandatory for all of you all? It is mandatory, right? You cannot say, I don't want to provide, I don't want to practice. So even if your company, practices 16, 17, all public holidays, because your policy says all, item B, which is Section 8, becomes mandatory. Same goes to Sarawak, same goes to Sabah. So these are mandatory holidays, right? So again, back to your question, do we need to observe? If you're already observing 11, 12, 13, whatever, for Peninsula, answer is yes, right? If you observe all public holidays in Peninsula, because your policy says all, then item B also becomes mandatory. Sorry, maybe I'm don't want to confuse you. Even your policy says all, item B is still required because item B is mandatory. Okay, so if your company for Peninsula Malaysia, if you are observing 14 public holidays, so it's 14 plus Section 8, right? For Sabah, you may already practice 18 because it says 18. So now it is for 2025, it is 19. For Sabah, for 2025, it is 15 plus 1, which is 16. If your company observes all the other remaining ones, yes, you observe as well. Got it? So it is not an option. All states in Peninsular Malaysia would need to provide, a paid holiday on 15th of September 2025. And, some questions ask, is this only for 2025? As far as the announcement is made, it is only for 2025. So you can wait for the Gazette, it is for 2025, right? And for Peninsular Malaysia, now, you must know that Holidays Act only applies to Peninsular Malaysia. Now, let me just go back one slide, right? If you now look at Peninsular Malaysia, right at the bottom, Section 60D 1B says what? On any day appointed as a public holiday for that particular year under Section 8 of the Holidays Act, right? 1951. So Holidays Act only applies to Peninsular Malaysia. Whereas for Sabah and Sarawak, it's a little bit different. Holiday Act doesn't apply to them. But what the Sabah Labour Ordinance and the Sarawak Labour Ordinance says, if you look at at the bottom, any other holidays declared by the state government is mandatory, right? So in this case, the holiday on 25th September is announced by the Prime Minister in consultation with the two states, and automatically the two states will have to also observe this as a mandatory holiday, right? So, but Holiday Act applies to Peninsular Malaysia. So you can read more on, on Holiday Act. Now, for Peninsular Malaysia, because Holiday Act applies to us, any holiday declared by the federal government under Section 8, right? You can see I've put it in bold in blue. Any holiday declared under Section 8 is mandatory. So if your company practices 14 and the government announces a holiday under Section 8, it shall become 15. So now in the case of 15 September 2025, the holiday is, it's announced under Section 8. Therefore, it's mandatory. But any holidays that is announced by the state in Malaysia, right? Not Sabah, Sarawak. That means all the 12 states in Malaysia, except Sabah, Sarawak, because they fall under Sarawak and Sabah Labour Ordinance. So any holidays under Section 9, it is not mandatory, right? If your company only observes 11, 12, 13, and the state government declares a holiday under Section 9, it is up to you whether you want to observe. But if your company policy says that all holidays will be observed by the company, then automatically whatever in Section 9 has got to be observed. Why? Because your policy says so, right? So for those company that observes limited, maybe 11, 12, 13, but not all, Section 8 will still apply, but Section 9, it's not mandatory for you, not required. But if you want to observe, that's up to you, right? So this is Section 8, Section 9. Now, I'm sure some of you all may have questions and so on. So let me repeat again. If you listen closely, your questions are answered. Section 8 applies to everyone, right, in Peninsular Malaysia. Remember, Holidays Act applies to Peninsular Malaysia. So why Section 8 applies, let me go back to the first slide just now. So look at Federal Territory, look at Peninsular Malaysia. It says that, N, right, 11, including the 5, and any other day appointed as a public holiday for that particular year under Section 8, right? It becomes mandatory. So whether your company practices 8, 12, 13, etc., Section 8 will apply. Even your company policy says we observe all. So let's say there's 18 public holiday this year, you're already observing all. You also will need to observe Section 8 because it's mandatory, right? Now, Section 9, if your company says we practice all holidays, Section 9 automatically becomes, something that you need to provide because your policy says all. But if the company only provides, limited holidays, maybe 11, 12, 13, then Section 9, it's not mandatory or not necessary for those companies who do not practice all. But if the company wants to give, you can give, right? I'll cover this again in a subsequent slide. And so I repeat again, any holidays declared under Section 8, all companies in Malaysia, all states in Malaysia, in the Peninsular Malaysia, that means the 12 states, including Labuan, as long as holiday declared under Section 8, then you will need to provide to the employees, such as 25th September. And if you recall, when Pakatan government first won the election in 2022, was it 22? No, 2020, 2020. Remember the Prime Minister back then, Tun Mahathir, he declared 2 days holiday. That was also under Section 8. And now, of course, the current Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim, he has declared 15 September, that falls under Section 8. Now, what about holidays declared under Section 9, right? There are three scenarios. So if the company observes minimum, then Section 9 is not mandatory. But if the company observes all, if you look at the third sentence, right? If the company observes all, then you need to provide Section 9 holidays as well. But if the company only observes minimum 11, and maybe a few others, some companies, they provide more than 11, for example, 12, 14. Now, if your company provides not all, that means limited, 11, 12, 13, 14, etc., so Section 9 also becomes not applicable to you unless you want to provide. So companies where your policy says all public holidays, you got to also observe whatever holidays declared under Section 9. But if your company observes not all, that means all, Section 9 is applicable. Not all, Section 9 is not applicable, right? So that is in simple layman term. And so let me share with you again some overview of the holidays in Peninsula, Sabah, and Sarawak. So you can see Section 60D for Peninsular Malaysia. We, for example, I'm also operating in PJ, so we are provided 11 days minimum, right? Plus Section 8. So it's not just 11, it is 11 plus Section 8. Now, can the company observe more than 11? You can. There are many companies out there, they observe all, right? They observe all holidays. So for example, our Malaysia HR Forum as an organization, we also observe all. But there are companies out there, they only observe 11 or 12, right? Not all. So again, let me repeat, if you observe 18 or 11 or 12, so it is 18, 11 or 12 or whatever number of holidays you observe plus Section 8, right? Now, for Sarawak, it is, total is 18, right? 6 is mandatory, 12 is option, 12 you can choose. So 12 plus 6 is 18. And for Sabah, it is 10 plus 5, that is 15, right? So these are the three, comparison of Peninsula, Sarawak, and Sabah. Now, one additional thing about Sarawak and Sabah is that the 12 holidays, you can see the box in the middle, the 12 additional holidays that you're going to choose, according to the ordinance of Sarawak and as well as Sabah, it says that it shall be fixed with regards to the religion and customs of the employees. In Malaysia, we don't have it, right? In Sabah, Sarawak, it becomes a necessity for you to choose these dates, these 11 or these 12 or 10 dates based on the religion and customs of the employees, right? So this is something to take note of. Malaysia, employees can choose. Now, so to repeat again, it is not just 11, it is 11 plus Section 8, right? It is 18 plus Section 104 in bracket 1B, right? That is for Sarawak. And for Sabah, it is 15 plus Section 1031B, right? So all, whether it's Peninsula, which falls under Employment Act, or Sarawak, which comes under Sarawak Labour Ordinance, or Sabah that comes under Sabah Labour Ordinance, all of this, right, all the three, it's 11, or whatever the holiday is, 11 plus Section 8, 18 plus Section 1041B, and 15 plus Section 1031B, right? Quite similar across board. And so these are some things that we may not be aware of. If you're not aware of, today you know, so we can do it right moving forward. Now, you know the 5 holidays, mandatory holidays for Peninsula, the 6 for Sarawak, and the 6 for Sabah, right? Okay, I made a mistake. So Sabah is 5, not 6, sorry. It's not, so there's a typo there. Sabah is 5, not 6. So 5, 6, 5. Now, this holiday, which is the King's birthday, Malaysia Day, Labour Day, the state ruler's birthday or state YDP's birthday, you know, so these 5 days, Hari Malaysia, right? These 5 days, for Sarawak is 6 days, must be observed on the same day, right? Must be observed on the same day. So there's a typo error for Sabah. It is not 6, it is actually mandatory 5. So this, you know, 5 for Peninsula, 6 for Sarawak, and 5 for Sabah must be observed on the same day, right? So let me go back to the first slide, just to recap again, this particular slide. So you can see the mandatory holiday, it's same across board, except Sarawak has got one additional day, which is Sarawak Independence Day. Otherwise, it's quite similar across board. National Day observed by Peninsula, Sarawak, and Sabah. Malaysia Day, all the 3. The Agung's birthday, all the 3. The state ruler, or even governor, for example, Penang and Melaka is governor, the YDP. So again, across all the states. Workers' Day across all the states, except that Sabah, they call it Labour Day. And Sarawak has got one additional day, which is called Sarawak Independence Day. So it's 5 for Peninsula, 6 for Sarawak, and 5 for Sabah. So let me go back to the next slide. So these mandatory holidays, the 565, must be observed on the same day. So what happens when the holiday falls on a rest day? For example, Sunday is a rest day for some of you, right? If you're working from Monday to Sunday, remember this, what EA says, and similar to Sarawak and Sabah, the last working day, sorry, the last day of the week, a week is 7 days, right? The last day of the week, it is the rest day, right? So now what happens if the holiday falls on the rest day, right? So rest day stays. We don't move the rest day. So if Sunday is a rest day, it is still a rest day. If somebody works on a rest day, they shall be paid a rest day rate. Now what happens to the public holiday? The public holiday shall be replaced or substituted with the next working day. So for example, if Monday is a working day, Monday will become the public holiday, you know, that is supposed to be on Sunday, but it's now moved to Monday, right? Rest day stays, so we don't move rest days. The holiday goes to the next day, right? So the 5 days, if it falls on a rest day, the next working day, right? If Sunday, it shall be observed as a public holiday. Now, what happens when 2 holidays falls on the same day, right? Now, this is something new for Sabah and Sarawak. For Peninsula, we have been observing this for the longest time. If 2 public holiday falls on the same day, so one of the public holiday will be moved to the next working day. Now, in this case, the non-mandatory holiday should be moved to the next day. So let me give you an example. Wednesday is a working day, right? Everybody works on Wednesday, for example. So Wednesday is not your rest day, so Wednesday is working day. So happen that, let's say, for example, let me give you an example. Labour Day and another state holiday falls on the same day, on Wednesday. So Labour Day stays on Wednesday, but the other holiday, the state holiday, will be moved to the next working day, right? So you don't move the mandatory holiday to any other day. It has got to be observed either on the same day or the next working day. But any other holidays, which is not the 5, not the 6, not the 5, you can move to any other day, right? Now, so this is what you do when 2 holidays fall on the same day. So the recent amendment of Sabah Sarawak Labour Ordinance, this has been added on. So now, what happens, right? The other thing that many may not be aware, in both EA, it has been there for the longest time. It has been in Sarawak Labour Ordinance, Sabah Labour Ordinance. Now, all these 3 requires company to, to exhibit conspicuously. That means you got to you got to exhibit, what do you call this? The notice to tell employees what are the remaining holidays, that you're going to observe for the year. So for example, if you observe 11, we all know what is the 5 holiday, right? Same goes to Sarawak. if you're going to observe, the 18, you know what are the 6. And for Sabah, if you're going to observe, the minimum, you know what are the 5. But question is, what are the other holidays that the company is going to choose? Right? What are the other holidays? So what is required under Section 60D1 in Peninsula, and what is required under Section 104 in Sarawak, and Sabah is Section 1032. What is required across all these three, right, regulations is the employer, which is you are required to exhibit, that means mempamerkan conspicuously where can be seen, at the place of work, that means in your company, before the calendar year starts, right? A notice to specify what are the remaining holidays. In Peninsula is 6, Sabah is 12, and Sarawak 12, Sabah 10. That means what is, in other words, right? 2026 is going to come in another 6 months' time. Before 2026 starts, you need to exhibit. That means you need to put up a notice where people can see, your employees can see what are the remaining holidays that the company is going to observe, right? So many of you all may not know. So this is a requirement. And remember this, the minimum penalty, or shall I say the max penalty, not minimum, the max penalty, for offenses like this is 50,000 fine, right? So please exhibit. A sample memo is shared. There's a link later, but that's for 2025. So we need to wait for the 2026 calendar. Usually the Prime Minister's department will issue the calendar for the next year, sometime around this period, June, July, they'll be announcing it. So once it's out, quickly, analyze, quickly go through it. What are the holidays you're going to observe for 2026, right? And publish it. Okay, so that's one. Let me move on to the next. Now, the question is this, so let's say now for 15th September holiday, right? The Prime Minister says it is to be observed on 15. But remember this holiday you can also move it to any other day, because it is not the 5, not the 6 for Sarawak, and not the 5 for Sabah. Now, can the employer, let's say can you decide on your own? Okay, you know what? The 15th September holiday, we don't want to observe on 15. Can we move it to, let's say, 17 October, right? Or 19 November? Can the company alone decide? Answer is no, right? The provisions, whether it's in EA or Sarawak or Sabah Labour Ordinance, it says that by agreement between the employer and the employee, right? That means it is not, the company cannot change it on its own. The company, in agreement, that means you must get your employee to agree with you, right? Both parties agree, okay, yes, we agree that this holiday on 15, we shall move it to, let's say, another day, maybe in October or in November, right? It must be by agreement. The question is why, right? Some of you may ask why. Why don't the company have the right? Now, remember this, the Act, whether it's Peninsula Malaysia or Sarawak Labour Ordinance or Sabah Labour Ordinance, provides this, right, to the employee. Employees are provided, they're entitled for it. And the dates of the holiday are already specified. And what the ordinance says, by right, if the public holiday falls today, you observe today. Employees are aware. But if you decide to move the holiday to any other day, shouldn't the employee be made aware of? Because why? The law says that 15 September holiday should be observed 15. But if you want to move, the company wants to move, then you got to at least let me know, and I need to, kind of agree, because it says by agreement, before you move. Otherwise, please observe on the same day. So in other words, right, if the employees do not agree for the holiday to be moved to another day, please observe on the same day, right? My question to companies is always this: why do we like to move holidays around, right? Is it really worth it? Because it's either you celebrate it now or you celebrate it later. Now, in the case of 15 September, we are given, 3 weeks advance notice, right? You can still plan your operations. But of course, if there's some major activity planned and you can't do anything about it, then you got to inform your employees, get them to agree, so that you can move the holiday from 15 to any other date. Okay, so some of you all may not be aware, company cannot change this holiday to any other day on their own. It has got to be by agreement with the employee. That means employee and employer has got to agree. Now, what happens if an employee falls sick on a public holiday? So for example, 15 September is a holiday, 16 September is also a holiday, right? Hari Malaysia is on 16, 15 is an additional holiday. What happens, the employee falls sick For some reason, on that particular day, they happen to fall sick. Now, Section 60D, 1B, in Peninsula, in Sabah, in Sarawak is Section 104, bracket 3, and in Sabah, Section 103, subsection 3. Now, what all these regulations says, the employer shall grant another day as a paid holiday, right? Since the employee is an MC, he's entitled for the MC, so companies will need to provide another day as a paid holiday, for those who are affected, right? It's provided there. Some of you may not be aware of this, but it's there, right? And so what happens if a public holiday falls on a rest day or another public holiday? I've already repeated just now, I've mentioned just now. The next working day shall be the replacement holiday. Okay, so that's some info as well. Let me, so I hope I've covered some of your questions that you always have, right? Now, there are also questions that people like to ask. Do I need to provide paid rate? The ×2, ×3 that you all are familiar with. Do I need to pay this to employees? Can I replace with annual leave? Right? So the answer will be here. Now, some of you all may have seen this box. If you have joined my other webinars on EA amendment, and those of you all, if you have joined us in the Sarawak Labour Ordinance training, and Sabah training is coming soon. Now, I usually share this concept of green box, red box, right? Now, those employees in the green box, right? I will not be able to explain in detail, but I just run through very briefly. Those who are doing manual labor, those who are operating a mechanically propelled vehicle, you are doing the operations or maintenance of it, or if the employee is supervising or overseeing other employees. Now, for this group, it does not matter whether your salary is above 4 or below 4, right? So this group, whether their salary is above 4, below 4, even 10,000, if they work on a public holiday, the public holiday rates must be paid. You cannot replace with annual leave. Why? Because the Sabah Labour Ordinance, the Sarawak Labour Ordinance, Employment Act 1955 says that it must be paid. They did not give an option that companies can pay or replace in lieu. Cannot, right? Because it does not provide replace in lieu. It only says that company, if the employee is required to work on a public holiday, and if they work, you got to pay them that ×2, ×3 rate, right? For those people in the green box. So the other employees, let's say a HR department, finance exec. So if the finance exec, the HR exec, the sales exec, or sales clerk or purchasing clerk, now those who are not in the first category, right, on the left hand side, there are other employees. So I believe all of you all, if you are human resources, right, you will be under the category of other employees. Why? Because you're not a manual labor, you're not operating or maintaining a mechanically propelled vehicle, and you're not supervising another manual labor, right? So you are under other employees, other categories. So for all other employees, if your salary is up to 4, if you work on a public holiday, then the public holiday rate has got to be paid. No replacing with annual leave, right? So that is the green box. So green box, you have to provide the public holiday rates, right? ×2, ×3. But those in the red box, that means if you're a HR manager earning 5,000, right, you're above 4. Or even if you're a HR officer earning 5,000, or maybe you have a very senior clerk. Some companies, they have very senior clerk, a finance clerk, or maybe an admin clerk, or purchasing clerk, right? Security clerk. If this clerk is earning above 4, then they will be under the red box, right? So for those people in the red box, if these employees in the red box are required to work, then for this group, because they're not covered under the public holiday provision with regards to the pay, now this group, you can provide, you can give them, an allowance, or you can give them a replacement leave, right? So only for the red box, you can give a replacement leave. But for those in the green box, they will have to be paid the public holiday rate. You can choose not to give them replacement leave. That is an option. That is something additional. But they must be paid the ×2, ×3 rate, right? If you want to give in addition to ×2, ×3, you want to give a public holiday, that's up to you. But it's not required, not mandatory. If you want to give, well and fine. But what is minimum is you got to pay those in the green box the public holiday rate ×2, ×3 if they happen to work. Okay, so questions like, can we replace with annual leave? Answer is no, only for the red box. Red box, you can replace annual leave, but the green box, you must pay. Okay, so I hope that answers many of the questions that you may have. Now, when you get this copy of this slide, right, there's two links at the bottom. Now, if you want to know what exactly is manual labor, there's also a small formula or a small, method how to determine who's a manual labor. So that I would encourage you to get these slides, right, and read it. We'll share these slides in the forum. We will not be emailing it to you, but get it from the forum. Now, we have shared a sample memo last week, right, on the upcoming scenario. Now, I will not go through in detail, but I'll just give you, at least how it looks like. So remember this, if the public holiday falls on a rest day, you got to replace it, right? Replace it with the next working day. If two public holiday falls on the same day, then one public holiday you observe today and another public holiday you observe tomorrow or any other date that you have agreed with the employee. But if a public holiday falls on an off day, for those employees who are working 5 days, you only work 5 days, then day number 6 is an off day, day number 7 is a rest day. So do you need to replace a public holiday that falls on off day? You don't need to. You only need to replace a public holiday that falls on a rest day, right? So if you can see the 5-day work week, look at the third row, the third scenario. On 16th September, right, some of the employees will be on a rest day. So therefore, 17th September becomes a replacement public holiday. But if you want to observe the holiday on any other day, then of course you need to get, you'll need to get employees' consent. So in this case, for example, 15 Monday is the additional holiday. That happened to be off day for scenario number 3. You don't need replace, right? Off day, public holiday has got to be observed on the day, no replacement. But since the 16th September holiday falls on a rest day, then the next working day becomes a replacement public holiday for 16th September, right? And so that's for 5-day work week. And if you look at 6-day work week, let's look at the third scenario as well. 6-day work week, they work for 6 days and 1 day rest. They got no off day, right? Because they work for 6 days. And remember this, a week definition is 7 days. The last day of the week shall be the rest day. So if you look at scenario number 3, the last day of the week, right, happened to be on 16. So since a public holiday falls on 16, therefore 17 September becomes a replacement public holiday, right? 15 is a working day. Since a public holiday falls on 16, it's a public holiday, right? So for the group number 3, they'll be having, they'll be off on Monday, on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, they'll not be working, right? So 3 days break for them. So I will leave this here. You can read this later on your own. And so that's the presentation today, but I got more FAQs to cover. So before I proceed, let me do a small advertisement. So of course, we encourage all of you all to deepen yourself, with various topics in HR. So these are some of the trainings that we have. We have a PIP training happening on 19 August. OSH coordinator, if you are into OSH, if you need to appoint one, HR for beginners on 1920, and drafting your employee handbook, right? These are all trainings are claimable under HRDF. And for those of you all, if you are interested to take up certification programs, right? We also offer a series of certification programs. We've got total 9. I'm only sharing 5. So for example, if you want to be a certified industrial relations practitioner, there are 4 modules that you need to attend, and all are HRD Corp claimable. Okay, so let me continue. Now, these are some best practices so that, you don't run a cowboy environment. Every time government announce a public holiday, now we start cracking our head, how, what, why, who, this, that, etc., what to do. Now, you got to have this organized, right? You got to get used to it, that government may declare a holiday under Section 8, right? If the government sees there's a need. For example, now the government is declared 15. And remember when Pakatan won the election, they gave 2 days of public holiday. And some of the states, like for example, Johor, I can't recall the other states. Remember, they won the Asia Cup, if I'm not mistaken, or the Malaysia Cup, and the state declared a holiday. So these are things that is bound to happen. It's nothing new. So companies will need to, anticipate, right, that holidays may be announced, may be declared, and you got to be always prepared, right? So first and foremost, I would encourage all of y'all to first establish your public holiday policy, right? So the link provides you the sample. Unfortunately, this is only for Peninsula, but I think for Sabah, Sarawak, since you guys are quite on par with our public holiday provisions, you can always modify and adapt to your needs, right? Now, in this policy, right, that you're going to see things like what happens when the government declares an ad hoc public holiday, like for example, 15, right? So my advice to companies is spell this out in your policy, right? If you look at item number 3, spell this out in your policy, saying that now, if the government declare, right, what is your treatment? For example, like some of the companies I've seen, now if the government declare on 15, the holiday, we will replace it another day, but we'll tell you when. So that means when government declares a sudden holiday, your employees have already been trained, or you've already told them the holiday will be moved. You work as usual, right? Now, in this case, we're lucky because the Prime Minister announced, 3 weeks ahead. 15 September, announced last week, we have got slightly more than 3 weeks, right? So you have ample time to prepare. But what happens if the government announced on Friday a holiday that's going to happen on Monday, right? Saturday, Sunday is public holiday. Sorry, Saturday, Sunday is your off day, rest day, right? I can tell you if that happens, right? HR will be operator, answering phone calls. Your employer is going to call you, hey, HR, macam mana, bila, how, this, that, etc. So a safer approach is spell it out in your policy that if the government declares a holiday, ad hoc holiday, right? The 5 is 5. The mandatory, they will not, it remains. But any other ad hoc holiday, whether it's Section 8 or whether it's Section 9, what do? You tell the employees through your policy that the company will operate as usual. And we will replace the holiday. We'll inform you within 7 days, right? So now, if let's say, if you have enough time to react and you feel like, okay, I tell you what, why not we observe on the same day? Then you issue a memo to employees saying that the company has decided to observe the holiday on the same day. But if you don't, or maybe the time is too short, the employees already know that we work as usual, right? So even though government declared, we're going to work as usual. So you don't take a knee-jerk reaction like when the government announces, suddenly, what do I do, right? That is called a cowboy style. So have it in black and white, have it, in clear manner, what happens when this holiday is declared. So that is one option, and this is going to be covered in your policy as well. And so remember, I was saying that before the year starts, right, before 2026 starts, before the calendar year starts, that means as late as 31st December 2025, you have to put up a notice on what are the holidays you're going to observe for next year, right? For those of you all who don't observe all holidays, right? You got to put up notices, right? And if you want to change your holiday to any other day, employees' agreement is required. So if you're going to, by default, if today's a holiday, since falls on a rest day, automatically the next day, then you don't need to get employees' consent, because why? That is by law. But if you're going to move to any other day, you got to get employees' consent. Now, again, you'll be wondering, why do I need to get employees' consent? I'm the company, right? Answer is this. The law says employees are entitled to 11 plus 9. If your policy says you observe all, then the employee is entitled to all the holidays. Now, the law says that if the holiday falls on a rest day, automatically the next day becomes a replacement holiday. But company want to move. Otherwise, it's the next day. But because company wants to move, then you got to get employees' consent. So let me give you another context. Now, the employment contract says that the notice period, right, if either party wants to terminate the contract, the notice period is 2 months. Now, as an employee, can I change the notice period to 1 month? If your contract is 2 months, cannot. I can only, change this 1 month if you agree. Because why? The contract is signed by 2 parties, right? You got to get this concept right, so that you don't have this question, can I change? Do I need to get consent? Answer is very simple. The law provides the public holiday to be replaced the next day. That's all, right? So the employee knows. If you observe all the 11, let's say, for example, if you observe 14 and you've already specified, or you observe 11, the 5 days is mandatory, the dates are fixed. But the other holidays, if you're going to observe the same day, you don't need to get employees' consent, it's same day. But if you're going to observe, and let's say if the holiday falls on a rest day, then the next day becomes a replacement holiday. You don't need to get employees' consent. The law provides for it. But now, if you want to change the holiday, you don't want to observe the next day, you want to move it to some other day, you got to get employees' consent, right? Now, the other thing that many may not be aware, for example, Christmas holiday falls on December 25th every year. For some reason, the company says that, December 25th, since we only have 1 or 2, Christian colleagues, let's move the holiday. Now, any holiday that you're going to move to another date, must be observed in the same calendar year, right? So now 16th September, if you're going to move, your employees has agreed, but the date cannot be 2026. So 2025 holiday must be observed in 2025. So if you're going to move Christmas for some reason, if you're not going to celebrate 25th, then you either have to replace it on 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31st. That's it. You cannot bring it to 1st January. You can't, right? It has got to be observed in the same calendar year. Now, the other thing that you also should consider is what happens when a government declares a public holiday and so happen that your employees are on business trip. This is another scenario, right? So if you go back to the policy sample, we have given two options. What do you do, right? So make this clear. The importance of having a well-drafted policy is important because why? You do not want to be caught in a scenario where your policy doesn't address it, right? So you got to, anticipate what are the various scenarios. Writing a policy is not as easy as copy, cut, paste, go to Google, copy some existing policies, go to ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT to fine-tune it, etc. No, the facts has to be correct. ChatGPT can help you to make, fine-tune things, maybe the presentation, the choice of words, how you structure the sentence, etc. But you got to get the facts right. So draft a clear policy, get yourself trained on how to draft policies, draft it clear, anticipate all the scenarios, right? So that you don't have to work in a cowboy land. Some companies, right, not all, they operate in a cowboy style. Huru hara lah. Whenever things happen, they'll be having, a United Nations meeting. Okay, what do we do? How this, that, etc. MD, how this, that. Now, cannot operate that manner. That's what I call as cowboy style lah, or wild, wild west. Clear up your policy, firm up your policy, anticipate all the scenarios that may happen, right? And publish it. So when a public holiday is organized, your policy already covers. Okay, so for example now, let's say, in our company, for example, we've already made it clear that if the government declares any ad hoc holiday, on that day, we will work as usual, unless we tell you otherwise. That means by default, everybody's already it's already programmed in their mind that company will operate as usual, unless the company tell them. So now, for example, suddenly the government declared 15th September, right? Last week, the Prime Minister declared 15th September. So now what do we do? As far as employees concerned, 15th September, we will be working. But now we got time, so we have discussed, the management decided that we will observe on 15th. Now you issue a memo to employees saying that the company will observe the public holiday on 15th, right? So let's say you say 7 days, within 7 days, you got to tell them. Okay, now the last link is the sample memo. We've got memos for you to issue, PH scenario, and FAQs on the 15th September holiday. So if you want it, you can get these slides and get the link and go to our Facebook and download this. Now, some FAQs, right? Remember, hold on to your keyboard because some of the questions you ask is answered here, so that we don't have to waste time answering questions that is repeated and so on. So I can focus on questions that is something unique. Now, so let me repeat. This is I've already mentioned. Our company observes all public holiday. Your company policy or your employment contract says all. So can we now say that any holiday under Section 9? Now remember this, 15th September is Section 8 for Peninsular. That means you must observe. Sabah, Sarawak, your ordinance says must observe, right? So it is not Section 9. But let's say for some reason, for Peninsular Malaysia, a particular state, the government announces Section 9. Your policy says all, or your employment contract says all. Do you need to observe? Answer is yes. Why? Because you have made things more favorable. Instead of 11, 12, or whatever, you have said now that we observe all. So when the government declares under Section 9, you got to observe all, right? So if you don't want to observe all, then you should not put the word all in your contract. You should say that the company observes this, spell out the holidays. If it's 17, you spell out the 17. If it's 18, you spell out the 18. But the moment you put all, that means you agree to give employees all the holidays declared by the government, including ad hoc holidays under Section 9. So the word all makes the difference here. Now, second question is, if the company do not observe all, right? For example, they only observe 11, which is the minimum for Peninsular. This is only for Peninsular. Observe 11 or maybe 12 or maybe 14, right? So if the government declares a holiday under Section 8, the federal government, do I need to observe? if the state government declares under Section 9, do I need to observe? Now, Section 8 is always federal. It's only federal, not always, only federal. Section 9 is state. So the answer is, if even though you don't observe all. So for some reason, I mean, your company policy, your contract says, we observe only 11 for Peninsula. So if it's going to be federal government's announcement under Section 8, then it becomes 11 plus 8. Right? Sorry, 11 plus Section 8. Right? Not 11 plus 8, 11 plus Section 8. But if the state government declares, then it is not compulsory for you. Why? Because you're not observing all. The word all doesn't appear. Okay, so I've repeated question 3 just now. So you are supposed, companies need to exhibit. That means you got to mempamerkan, not put in your P file or not put in your etc. Mempamerkan at places where we can see, right? Before the calendar year starts. So 2026 holiday, since you're not observing all, you got to specify what are the remaining 6 holidays, right? For Sabah, same thing as well. Sabah is 10 plus 5, right? So out of 15, 5 is mandatory. What are the other 10? For Sarawak, you have got 16, you got 18, right? Minus the 6 mandatory. What are the other 12? So for Malaysia, the 6 you got to publish. For Sarawak, what is the 12 you got to publish? And for Sabah, what is the 10 you got to publish, right? You got to publish it in your, wherever employees can see it. Now, so there's also a favorite question, very favorite question. Can we limit, right, put a cap for the wages, right? When we calculate the public holiday pay, the times 2 times 3, can we put a limit at 4,000? Now, you can put a limit of 4,000 for those people who is under the red box, right? Red box, yes, you can. But for the green box, right? Let me see if I made it correct. Sorry, kelam kabut a bit. Now, for the green box, you cannot limit. Yeah, correct. You cannot limit. Why? Because the green box, remember, wages above 4, below 4, they apply. But for the red box, yes, you can put a limit. Because the red box, the PHP, they've been excluded from that provision. So you can give a replacement leave for the red box, right? Or you want to give some formula, employees agree, that's fine. But for the red box, that's for red box. The green box, you got to pay. So let me repeat before I confuse you and I confuse myself, right? Let me share this again. So for those people, right, if you can see this table, those people in the green box, you cannot cap the OT, right? You cannot cap the OT because why? For those people in manual labor, even if their salary is 10,000, right, you got to pay them public holiday rate if they work based on their wages, which is basic salary and allowances. But those in the red box, you can say, okay, what, we pay you OT, we limit to 4,000, right? But employer must agree. Or the employer may say, you know what, you give me a replacement leave only for the red box. And so now, another question that people like to ask, this is all based on questions you all have asked in Facebook, here, there, etc. Now, this particular holiday on 15th of September, is it compulsory for private sector? Answer is yes, right? So Section 60D of Employment Act, Sarawak Labour Ordinance, Sabah Labour Ordinance, and also provided for the Holidays Act is there. So if you see the circular by the HR Minister, right, issued last week, the ministry have also said it's applicable under all these laws. So applicable, yes, for private sector. And so if you want to know, where can I find all this? So I've already repeated just now, just sharing it again. Section 60D, 1 for Peninsular Malaysia. For Sarawak, it's under Section 104, subsection 1. And Sabah is 103, subsection 1. So go and have a look at it and read it, right? You can see there, B, any other days appointed. Same goes to Sarawak, same goes to Sabah. And is it compulsory for Sabah, Sarawak? Yes, all states. So all the 14 states in Malaysia, 15 September holiday is compulsory. Can we choose to observe this holiday, 15 September, any other date, right? Yes, you can, you can observe any other date, right? Provided it is observed in the same calendar year. Now, remember this, your employees must also agree if the holiday were to be moved to any other date, right? If you're going to observe on the next working day, no problem. So what are the options available? So I won't repeat this again. This table can be a little bit confusing. That's why I added the word in bracket, right? So option 1, you grant the day off. That means, okay, semua pekerja tak payah kerja hari ni. You rest today, you already paid the public holiday pay, right? Because those are monthly salary, you're already paying them, right? Rest. But those on daily salary, right, you got to pay them the public holiday, you got to pay them the salary for the day. Yeah? Now, those people who are required to work and they happen to be in the green box, remember the green box, you got to pay them the public holiday rate. But option 3 are those people in the red box, right? If they work, right, you can grant them a replacement day. So let me repeat again. Those who are entitled, the green box who are entitled to public holiday rate, you got to pay them times 2 times 3. Cannot replace with annual leave. So what can employees do if companies don't follow? Make a complaint. Now, this holiday, is it applicable for foreign workers? Yes, it applies to local employees, foreign employees, permanent employees, or including those who are on fixed term, right? It also applies to them. What about part-time employees? Some of you all may have part-time employees or contract employees. Yes, they fall under the scope. They are also eligible for the public holiday, right? This is mandatory. Yeah? Now, if you're not aware on part-time employment regulations, please go to the forum. We've done a comparison for part-time employee, full-time employee, casual workers who are not considered as employed under EA or even the ordinances. So you go and see what are the entitlement. Their entitlement lesser a little bit compared to full-time employees. So please go and have a look at it. Now, can an employer ignore this holiday if it's not listed in their list of public holidays? So remember, I've mentioned repeatedly, answer is no. This is an additional holiday that is declared under Section 8, which must be given. And for Sabah, Sarawak, under their relevant ordinances, must be given, right? So it's not an option, it is a must to be given. But you can move this holiday to another day. So this is more of what to pay them, right? Whether it's Peninsula, whether it's Sabah, Sarawak. Now, those of you all, if you've gone through these 3X, 3X and ordinances, which is EA, Labour Ordinance for Sarawak, Labour Ordinance for Sabah, there are many similarities, including this. Public holiday, there are quite some items are similar. Same goes to what to pay, right? So the times 2, times 3, you can see there. Normal hours, that means the first 8 hours, if it's 8 hours, is their basic hours, it's 2 days wages, right? At the ORP. Whereas if they work OT on that day, that means work beyond the normal hours, it is times 3. So if you employ somebody on piece rate, that means, you pay them on piece rate. You produce this number of pieces, I pay this number of pieces. For example, in plantations, right? Some of them practice this. So on a normal day, they got to be paid. Let's say, for example, if you engage me to produce these pieces, and you pay me RM1 per piece, on that day, if I produce 1 piece of this, you got to pay me 2 times the ordinary rate, right? If I do this after the work hours, then you got to pay me 3 times the ordinary rate per piece. So this is the what you pay them. Okay, so that's very much on the PH for the PH provisions. 15 September holiday. I've given some done some FAQ. So let me pick up some of the questions that you have. Right? I won't be able to answer all because we have got roughly 30 minutes. But what I'll do is I'll pick up those questions that I've not addressed yet and something that is unique. Right? So now you may ask, but again, as I said, digest what I've shared just now, because most of the time these holidays, these questions are repeated, right? Because we don't pay attention, number one, right? Number two, we don't digest what has been shared. Therefore, we become so used to anything, just ask. Never think, never digest, just ask. Now, that's not the right way to do things. Okay. So let me just pick up some of the interesting ones. To whom we need to report to if the employees promise they want to move, but until the year end, they don't move. Go to Labour Office, right? Because if you're going to move the holiday, it must be observed in the same year. Remember, the employees are entitled to it. So you got to move within the same year. So if the company don't move and they don't provide, that means the year has finished and there's no replacement holiday provided, you can make a case to make a complaint to Labour Office. Okay, Masni asked this, can a company observe 2 different number of public holidays for production employees and office employees? I think there are many who practices this based on level, right? Just like annual leave. For those people who are in the office, higher level, they've got more annual leave. Those at lower job grade, lesser annual leave. So that you can do. But then in the same category, you shouldn't have two different practices. Otherwise, that is called discrimination, right? For example, operator grade 1, some has got higher, some has got lower, right? That is not allowed. Or operator, local operator got higher holidays, number of holidays, foreign operator got lesser number of holidays. That is discrimination because they're the same job category, right? So you different job grade, you have different practice, okay. But same job grade, your practice cannot differ. Otherwise, discrimination. Our company operates a 6-day work week. The government has declared Monday, 15 September as a public holiday. However, if the company prefers to observe the holiday on Saturday, 13 September, which is a working day for us, instead of the declared date, can this be allowed? So as I said just now, if you want to move the holiday to any other day, you got to get the employee's consent, right? Agreement, by the agreement of employee. So to answer this question, Bravin, go and talk to employees. Are they okay to move it to Saturday? But it's very unusual to move it backwards. Normally we move it forward. But please talk to employees. My company recognizes 16 public holiday, so not all, but 16. This is a question by Kavita. Now that the boss wants to cancel Christmas PH and recognize this PH in order to keep the cap at 16 days. So answer is no, right? So Kavita, your company, because you have already promised 16 to the employees, so now because of this new announcement, it is 16 plus 1. Not 16, 16 plus 1. So if your company observes all, now for those company who observe all, it is all plus 1. If a company observes 11, it is 11 plus 1. So a company cannot say that we want to maintain the 16, let's replace one of the days. Answer is no, right? So if your company does this, then I believe your company may have committed an offense, right? So please get it checked whether this practice is allowed or not. So if the employee is on hospitalization leave, okay, during a public holiday, should they be granted? Answer is yes, because if they are not well on that day, you got to provide replacement as what I've shared with you earlier on just now. Okay. So Shalini has this question. If an employee is absent, right? Employee is absent before or after the two public holiday without permission. Yes, they will not be entitled for the public holiday pay if they are absent before or after a public holiday. But what if their OD, off day, and rest day falls in between 13 and 14? Are they still entitled? So the question is now, off day, see, if the public holiday, remember this, off day is not recognized under EA, right? Off day is not recognized. So EA practices 6 working days. EA's design is 6 working days. So I would consider that the off day is actually a working day. So they got to come prior to that, right? So if they don't come prior to that, then the public holiday pay will not be paid, right? Because why? The working day before a public holiday, in your case, happened to be a Friday, for example. Monday is public holiday, Tuesday is public holiday, right? Sunday is a rest day, Saturday is an off day, Friday is a working day before the public holiday. So they were absent before public holiday. So please seek Labour Department's guidance further. Okay, so let me pick up if there's any other questions. Many are quite repeated. So if we move the holiday, 26 December, right? 26 December, if we move it to 26, so let's say, for example, I assume this is a question by Yini. The 15 September holiday, the company wants to move to 26. Now remember, Yini, with the agreement of the employees, and so happened that the employee resigned before that, right? Shall we back pay the said public holiday? Previous case, our staff requested back pay upon resignation. He won't be able to enjoy 16. For me, this is a holiday agreed upon. So if we resign before the same day, he shall be enjoyed. So I agree with you because EA doesn't provide a provision for this. But I would encourage you to just double check with Labour Department. If scenarios like this, do we need to reimburse them? Annual leave, yes. Right? Annual leave is clearly provided for. If the employee is unable to take up his annual leave before he leaves, the company has got to pay him back. But same provision is not provided to public holiday. But I would encourage you to seek further guidance from Labour Department. Okay. So now this is an interesting one. First time I encountered this question. If two public holiday falls on a rest day, how many holidays company need to apply? Or shall I say, two public holiday happen to fall on a rest day. So let's say on a Sunday, if your Sunday is a rest day, two public holiday falls on a rest day. Then both public holiday will be replaced with Monday and Tuesday. So that means Sunday rest day, Monday replacement holiday 1, Tuesday replacement holiday 2. Right? You cannot just say, oh, since fall, you got to replace both the holidays. Remember, this all employees entitlement. Now, if the company policy already mentioned that all PH is taken, do we still need to publish memo? But my question to MPD Matomek, do you observe all the holidays on the next working day as what the provision says, or you move it to a different date? Right? Remember this, the whole idea of this memo is so that employees are aware what are the holidays and when is it being observed. So you may publish a holiday, but the dates you keep it blank. Answer is no. So if you see this memo that I've shared, the date that is being replaced, it is also mentioned there, right? And you got to get employees' agreement or consent prior to that. So please check the memo. You'll have an idea what to do. Okay, this is I would say, an interesting one. What if only 50% of the employees agree to move the holiday? So you may not agree with my question, you may not agree with my statement, but good to get it checked again. The Act says that with consent of the employees. Now remember this, an agreement, right, is signed with individual employees. You do not put all the employees in one single room and tell all employees that, okay, look, all of you all here, so it's 1-to-1, right? And you have committed, these are all fundamental terms, you have committed that a company observes 15. So my thing is, everybody's got to agree, right? That is why, I was saying just now, why do we want to move the holiday here, move the holiday there, etc.? Now, the EA provision in EA, Sabah Labour Ordinance, etc., did not clearly provide for this, saying that if majority agree, company can go ahead. It did not say that. It says that with the agreement of the employee, right? I repeat again, with the agreement of the employee. Okay, let me see if you can go up a bit. Okay. Any other questions that you would like to ask? Let me see if I have, okay, I got more questions. Just hang on a second. Okay, so there's a question from Wei Yang Chu. If a company's working hours is from 8 o'clock morning to 5 o'clock in the evening, Mondays to Fridays, a worker works on PH 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock, does the company pay double, just pay double, or double pay plus 2 hours triple pay? Now, so Wang, to answer your question, if the employee, for example, is like, like in your case, you are already, those who are monthly salary, like me, like you, and many others, we are paid for every day of the month. So, for example, on 15th September, if you don't work, right, if you're monthly paid, you don't work, your salary is already paid for 15. But if they come to work, they will get the plus, the times 2, times 3, not another day pay plus another 2 and another 3, no, right? So I hope I've answered your question. So they'll the salary, the wages for the day, or shall I say, the wages for the day is already paid, right? If you're on monthly salary, every day is paid for. So like to answer your question, 15 September, when you don't work, the company is already paid you for the day. Am I right? So same thing applies for every other employee. But if they happen to come, right? If they happen to come, then you have to pay the times 2, times 3. So they get 1 day, right? They get 1 day salary plus times 2, times 3. Not 1 day plus another day plus times 2, times 3, no. So I hope I've answered your question. Right? Adeline, just help me here. Okay. How do I scroll it up? Okay. Okay. Now, yeah, there's an interesting one as well. Can we not observe Malaysia public holiday if the client is from US and we follow US public holiday? this was also asked quite recently. Unfortunately, the employment contract is between you and the employee signed in Malaysia. Malaysia provisions apply. You can provide US public holiday on top of the 11 days. So for companies like this, my advice would be observe 11, not all, plus you give the minimum that you need to observe for the US. So this employee will enjoy it, right? They will enjoy Malaysia 11 plus whatever holidays in US that they need to work, right? You cannot use US and not Malaysia because remember, they are governed under Employment Act. And Employment Act did not give any exclusion for anyone to be omitted from the public holiday provision. So as long as they've signed a contract in Malaysia under the Malaysian law, they will enjoy, or shall I say, they are entitled for minimum 11 public holidays. So for US, you can give them in addition to the 11, but you cannot replace. Okay. Okay. Okay, so there's a question from Rashid. For daily rate, if they work on Monday to Saturday, Sunday is a rest day, do we need to calculate the salary for Sunday? And if OT is on public holiday? Okay, so now I have a slide on this, but I did not put up here. The same slide that you have seen in the minimum wage order 2025, right? Now, sorry, 2024, the 1007. So if you look at those on daily salary, right? If you hire, whether it's daily or even weekly, so if you hire someone on a weekly, let me touch on weekly first, then I come to daily. If you hire someone on a weekly, if they only work 4 weekdays, right, 4 days per week, every day they're paid, if I remember, 96 ringgit or so. Now, if Sunday they don't come to work, it is automatically considered they're already paid for, because 96 ringgit times by 4 days times by 4 weeks or so, it'll bring them to 1,007, right? So those on monthly, you're paying them for every day. Those on weekly, you're paying them, the 1,007 is paid throughout the 4 or 5 or 6 days, right? So now, the question is, 15 September, if they are on daily rate or weekly rate or hourly rate, right? Monthly, like all of y'all, or weekly or daily, right? Or sorry, hourly. So those people, right? Those people who are on monthly, daily, and hourly, if a public holiday falls on the day they're scheduled to work, they also enjoy the public holiday, right? That means you got to pay them the minimum rate for the day, but they don't have to work. But if they happen to come to work on that day, then you got to pay them the OT rate, or the PH rate of ×2 ×3. So Rashid, Shah Rashid, I think I've covered. So remember this. I like to say it this way. Everybody that is covered under Employment Act is entitled for public holiday. What differs is that the mechanism of pay, you are on monthly, another employee could be on a daily, and another employee could be on hourly, right? The mechanism of pay calculation is different, but all of them are entitled to minimum 11 days. So if they happen to be on a work schedule for that day, whether you're monthly, whether you're daily, or whether you're, whether you're hourly, the rate has got to, their pay for the day has got to be paid. If you're monthly, company already pay you together with their basic salary and so on. If you're on daily, you got to pay them the daily rate for the day, but they will be enjoying at home, resting at home. If you're hourly, same thing as well. They're not working because they're entitled for the holiday. Therefore, you got to pay them the hourly rate. So I think some have this idea. If they're daily, they don't work on a public holiday, I don't pay, right? So if the public holiday happen to fall on the day they're supposed to work, they got to be paid the public holiday. The daily rate as well, which is a way to say that this is your public holiday entitlement, you can rest at home. But if they come to work, then you got to pay them ×2 ×3. Same goes to the employees on monthly salary. So, in Hui, your question is that correct? Those who are having 4K and above monthly salary are not mandatory pay overtime or public holiday pay. Now, when we say this, frequently when people say, okay, who is excluded or who is not entitled to overtime? The first instant answer that comes up from many people is above 4K no need. But to me, that is not an accurate statement. Remember, those employees who are manual labor, who are performing manual labor, who are supervising other manual labor, or if they are operating or maintaining any mechanically propelled vehicle, this group, it does not matter whether your pay is above 4 or below 4. A lorry driver who's driving the lorry day in, day out, if his salary is 8,000 ringgit, his his public holiday pay has got to be paid based on 8,000 ringgit, right? So he's not above 4. So remember, the green box, right? If you remember the green box, so it's very important to understand, the green box, red box concept, right? I use color because it's easy to describe, easy to explain. So, Huini, I would encourage you, when you get these, slides, digest what is the green box, what is the red box. Your statement applies, your statement is correct if you are describing employees in the red box. So other employees, for example, someone in HR, someone in finance, who are not doing manual labor, not supervising others, etc. This group of people, if their salary is above 4, then the public holiday provision with regards to the public holiday pay, if they work, they are not, they are excluded from that provision. But if they're in the green box, you got to pay them. So let me see. Now, can the employer, e.g., can the employer change the shift start time just so not to pay the PH rate? Now, this is an unfair labor practice, because if you already have your work schedule, right? Remember, go back to what EA's provision says. Company is supposed to, exhibit again the work schedule. You cannot just change as and when you want, right? You got to exhibit. Now, if you already promised them that, work days, this, you got to observe it. By tweaking this, just to avoid paying them the public holiday, rate, I think it's very unfair to the workers, right? It's very unfair. Okay, now this is another interesting question asked by Shazza. Now, are those people who are working in shift, right? So the shift hours crosses midnight, right? Especially, let's say, night shift. They work night shift, they start at, let's say, 7 o'clock or maybe 11 o'clock. They cross the 12 midnight, they complete their work for the day, let's say at 5 o'clock morning or 7 o'clock morning. So how do we do it? So for ease of explanation, the employee starts work at, let's say, this is to answer Shaza. And also another question asked earlier on. Let's say, for example, for ease of understanding, for ease of explanation, let's take the employee work from 7 to 7, 7 night to 7 morning, right? So it's 12-hour shift. So they enter, for example, they start work on 14 September. Is 14 a public holiday? No, right? Let's assume 14 is for some of the shift workers, 14 is a working day. So they start work on 14, 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. 14, they work until 7 a.m. on 15. So how do we calculate their pay? So should I calculate this way? 7 p.m. to 12 p.m. is normal rate, normal day, because not a public holiday. 12 a.m. until 7, I calculate as public holiday. So two different calculation. So now to answer this, we need to go back to Employment Act. What does Employment Act says about, the word day, right? So I will update this in the slides and share it with you later. So for the shift workers, right, their day starts when the shift starts. So if the shift starts at 7, their day starts at 7. So when they start working at 7, from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m., it's a normal day for them. It's not the public holiday for them. But if they start work at 7 p.m. on 15, and they work until 7 a.m. on 16, now that is a public holiday rate for them, right? If they start work on 7 p.m. on 16, which is still, 16 is still a public holiday, Hari Malaysia. They start work at 7 p.m., they work until 7 a.m. on 17. It is still a public holiday for them. The entire day, right, from the time they start, which is 7 p.m., until 7 a.m., that's their day. So the entire 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. is a public holiday for them, right? So for shift workers in continuous shift, their day doesn't start at 12 midnight. Their day starts when their shift starts. Okay, so that is for those who are having shift that crosses 12 midnight. Please get it checked. If you're doing double calculation, like I said, please get it checked. Okay, Farah, her question is this. Our company, which consists all Muslim staff, right? All the employees are, Muslims, observe Thaipusam as a public holiday. But the new GM says that they want to drop the Thaipusam, right? Drop the Thaipusam. And they've already published Thaipusam as one of the 14 days. Can we make the change? I'm quite sure all employees will agree. No employees will disagree, right? Now, when we go back to the EA provision, what the EA provision says, you are to exhibit, right, the holidays for the next 12 months. Or sorry, for the next calendar year. But that part, it did not say, get the employee's consent, what holidays, right? But if you observe the remaining, right, you observe the remaining and you want to, move the holidays, that consent is required. So my advice to you, Farah, this year, probably don't move it. Anyway, this year, Thaipusam is over, right? So for 2026, in December, before the year starts, publish the list of public holidays that you're going to observe for the next 12 months, right? For 2026. So then in that process, you drop Thaipusam and you replace with something else, right? So remember this, Farah, if your company already says 14, you cannot remove Thaipusam and keep it as 13. Make it 13. You can't. You got to swap Thaipusam with another day. Because why? You've already promised 14 days. So now you cannot use this opportunity to reduce from 14 to 13. You got to maintain 14 because you promised the employees 14, but what you do, you swap the Thaipusam to another public holiday. For example, you may say, okay, we want to, instead of Thaipusam, we want to observe, let's say, Vesak. That's okay, right? You cannot drop from 14 to 13. You can swap the public holiday to any other day. Okay. Now, a very important question from Susan. All this while, that means until today, point to this point, the company observes all public holiday. That means in their employment contract, they say all. Can the company now, right, change the all to, let's say, change the all to, let's say, minimum 11, right? If let's say Susan is in Peninsula and company says all, now they want to change 11. Now, what you're doing, Susan, you are now trying to vary the conditions of the employment contract. Because in the employment contract, you've already mentioned all days are published. Now, you can only change the terms of your employment contract if the workers agree to the change. So now, Susan, to answer your question, now I'm the employee, right? I'm the employee. The contract says, 12 days. Can I now tell the company, no, I don't want 12 days, I want to observe 14? Can I change the contract on my own? Cannot, because the other party to the contract is the company. So until I and the company agree to increase it to 14, answer is no. So same goes to if the company wants to decrease. Because remember, there are two parties to a contract, the company and the employee. So, since you got two parties, there's a condition in the contract, both parties sign. The contract is only complete when both parties sign, right? Both parties duly sign the contract. So now, if anybody, doesn't matter whether the company or the employee, if anyone wants to change any terms in the contract, the other party must agree. So if the company wants to increase the notice period, the employee must agree. If the company wants to increase or decrease public holiday, increase, everybody agree. Decrease public holiday, employee must agree. If employee wants to shorten the public holiday, company must agree. If employee want to change, maybe enhance or increase the annual leave, the company must agree. So nobody, no single party can make these changes, Susan. Unfortunately, you cannot do this. This is not acceptable or not allowed, right? Because you are trying to change the contract without the employee agreeing. Okay, but you want to change it, you must go to the employee and the employee must agree, okay, company, boleh, you can change it. But I can tell you, nobody, right? Nobody would agree to reduce their public holiday, whatever that has been provided for. So like, I can tell you some practices out there, right? If you want to know what is the best way, because employees, just like all of you, none of us, right, would agree to reduce the benefits. Nobody will agree, right? Who will agree to reduce benefits? I don't think anyone. So you might have to give something else in return, right? You must give something else in return so the employer agree. So what a company has done is, because they find that this, observing all public holiday is always a challenge, because whenever government declares extra holiday or ad hoc holiday, it becomes, a must for them to comply. So what they do, instead of all, they now observe limited, for example, 16, right? Now, the public holiday that they choose not to observe, let's say previously was all, when you do a bit of calculation, it's either about 18 or 19. So now they only want to observe 16. So what they've done is they've told the employees, now these 3 additional holidays that we don't want to observe anymore, right? We want to reduce 16. What this company have done, they've made agreement with the employees, and all of them have agreed that these 3 holidays will be put into the annual leave. So if currently annual leave is 14, now the annual leave will be 17. So if you ask me, right, a better way, right? Again, this is my personal opinion. Having, higher annual leave, business still run. But when you have a lot of public holidays, disruption happen to your business, right? I remember reading the statement by FMM. 1 day public holiday will cost, employees almost $1 billion, right? When this holiday happens. But when you give additional public holiday employee, company still runs. Some of them will be on leave this day, that day. So not everybody taking leave on the same day. So if you ask me, if you want to do this, it's good to meet your employees and have an agreement with them. You take 3 days, you give them 3 days replacement via annual leave. So I'm sure employees will agree, right? But you deciding on your own, answer is no lah. So consent is required, because why? You are making changes to the contract. Okay. Okay, hold on a second. Why do I miss? My question disappeared. Okay, it disappeared back. Okay, wait, there's an interesting one. So Timmy, next year, Thaipusam and Federal Territory Day. This is for KL. Thaipusam and the Federal Territory Day both falls on Sunday, 1st February. If the company observes all, so what happens is, right, both are not mandatory. Thaipusam is not. FT, is FT mandatory? No, FT is FT mandatory? Oh yeah, for KL, yes, right? So what happens is, Sunday is your rest day, right? Because Sunday is your rest day. Monday is your FT replacement, and Thaipusam replacement is on Tuesday, or you can replace Thaipusam any other day, provided the employee has agreed, right? So you need to replace both holidays, yes. Okay, now this is another confusion that some have. When we say minimum 11 days, right? Or when you look at the calendar, right, always refer back to the calendar issued by the Prime Minister. Sometimes when we decide our holidays, right, we tend to go to internet and search Malaysian public holiday. Now that is not an official calendar. The official calendar is issued by the Prime Minister's department for the whole country, right? That is official. It covers the federal holidays as well as all the state holidays. That is official. Don't use the internet one, right? Internet one may not be accurate. So if you go back and if you refer to the Prime Minister's calendar, it says that Chinese New Year got day 1, day 2. Hari Raya got day 1, day 2. So if your company observes Chinese New Year, does it mean you observe both days or one day? Now, both days are treated independently. So you may only observe first day of Chinese New Year, but not the second day. So you got to spell out. When you say 11 days, right? If you say minimum 11 days, you got to spell out. Don't just say Chinese New Year, because then you are, it's confusing whether it's 1 day, 2 day. Each day is separate public holiday. So what you can do is, you can observe like this. The 5 for Malaysia, or even Sabah, Sarawak, for example, the 5 mandatory holidays, right, which is the King's birthday, the Sultan's birthday, or the YDP's birthday, Labor Day, Malaysia Day, Hari Merdeka, right? All these 5 holiday, the 5 mandatory for Peninsula. Then you may say the company only wants to observe, the other 6, right? Remember, 11 minus 5 is 6. First day of Chinese New Year, first day of Hari Raya, Deepawali, Hari Wesak, Hari Raya Haji, and Christmas. Also can. If you don't want to observe both the Chinese New Year, because it's considered 2 days, so Chinese New Year is 2 days, Hari Raya is 2 days, and for some states, Hari Raya Haji is also 2 days, right? So you got to specify whether 1 day or both days. Okay, and so that's Timmy, and also the other, that's to answer. Okay, you've written in Chinese. 我不是彰化人啊。Okay, So maybe I'll just pick this last question. So Tanendran, our company policy states that we will observe public holiday as outlined in section 9. Are we permitted to amend this at a later stage? Now, so Tanendran, like what I mentioned just now, once you have committed to the employee, when you say section 9 means, right, if any holidays declared under section 9, then it's automatically compulsory for you. Why? Because you've already committed to the employee that you'll observe holidays declared by the state government, right? Section 9 state government. When you already mentioned you will observe, you could observe. You cannot later then change it, right? So if you want to do this, then might as well don't observe all. Just say that the company observes 11. The safest step is, no, company observes 11. But on an annual basis, the company may decide, right? For this year, we're going to observe, right? But again, it becomes very tricky because 1 year you don't, 1 year you don't. So the best, just observe minimum. And if the government declares any ad hoc holidays, you decide based on company discretion. Okay? The government declared, for this year, we will observe this because it's additional to the 11. We'll observe this. But it is not a permanent fixture. We're not going to observe this every year. So make it very clear and make sure employees understand. Okay, so answer is once you have committed to 11 to section 9, you cannot later take it back lah. Okay, so some companies they count Chinese New Year as 1 PH for 2 days. Oh, no. Okay, so Chinese New Year, day 1, day 2 is 2 public holiday, not 1. Right? Day 1, day 2 is 2 public holiday. Okay, let me see. Maybe one last question. Okay, currently my company observes minimum 11 days, but only 5 gazetted public holiday we pay 2.0. That means times 2 times 3. Other 6 public holidays we provide replacement. So now, Norzila, to answer your question, if the employees are in the green box category, right? Go back to the green box category. Whether it's the first 5 days or the next 6 days, you got to pay them times 2 times 3 if they work, right? But those people in the red box, for all the 11 days, if they happen to work, you can provide them a replacement leave. So remember this, replacement leave is only possible for those employees in the red box, right? Those in the green box, right, which is manual workers and all other employees earning below 4, or sorry, earning up to 4, the green box, right, you got to pay times 2 times 3. But in the red box, those in the red box, you can give replacement leave. Okay, so I think that's all for today. So thanks a lot. I think I've answered most of the questions. Some are repeated, but I hope that you have benefited a little bit from this webinar. So we will share these slides, right? We'll share these slides to in our Facebook group, so you can download it. Get the links and download the memo, download the sample policy, and which is useful to you. So you have something to work on, right? And use it later. Now remember this, using ChatGPT to draft your policies, ChatGPT can give you a very nice, polished, refined words, nice mumbo jumbo words, etc. But ChatGPT may not be able to provide you the accuracy based on the law, right? It can fine tune your words, making nice, proper grammar, etc. But in terms of relevancy to the law, right? The facts always fall back to either Employment Act if you're in Peninsula, refer back to Sarawak Labour Ordinance if you're in Sabah, as well as Sarawak Labour Ordinance if you're in Sarawak. Okay. There's one last question. I think this is interesting. Is there a possibility that public holiday announced by federal government under Section 9? So all announcement by federal holiday is under Section 8. Right? If you go back to Holidays Act, which I've actually put a simple provision, as I've copy and paste there. Federal holidays, Section 8. State holidays, Section 9. Okay, this is what Peninsula. Okay, so I think that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope, if this has given some clarity to public holiday, 15 September. And like I said, if there's anything that you're not sure, not clear, please consult the Labour Office for further clarification. They are the rightful authority. I'm just we're just sharing our knowledge. I hope, I didn't confuse you in the last 1.5 hours or so. But if there's any questions, you can always ask in Facebook, right? And there are so many other experienced professionals who knows, Employment Act, SLO in detail, we'll be able to help you out. They'll be able to help you out, and other members who selflessly share their knowledge and experience. So thanks a lot, and enjoy your 15th September holiday. But get things in order before the holiday, right? Yep. So slides, go back to Facebook. We will share in Facebook. You can go and download from Facebook. Okay. So thanks a lot, and have a great day ahead.
Welcome